and I'll discuss the biblical view of interstellar travel, aliens, and evolution. You may think that this is a somewhat strange topic to discuss, but I think this is an important topic to discuss within the church. Before we begin, please, you mute your microphone basically, and throughout the session, I'll be asking you questions, and to respond, unless instructed otherwise, please use gestures. For multiple choice questions, show me your answers with your fingers like this. 4, 3, 1, okay? And for true false questions, basically signal your maybe arms like this, true or false. So here first, let me briefly talk about my technical background. Have you heard of the James Webb Space Telescope? So as the largest telescope in space, it is equipped with high resolution and high sensitivity instruments, facilitating the view of stars and galaxies very far and faint. There are several major instruments in the James Webb Space Telescope, and one of them is called multi-object spectroscopy, which is used for simultaneous spectroscopy of multiple sources in a single exposure using micro-shutter arrays. And the micro-shutter arrays comprise nearly 250,000 configurable pixels that can be individually open or closed for a custom pattern for each exposure or set of exposures. So my expertise and experience are closely related to this area. And because of this background, I give lectures on a biblical view of space and time related topics. So what do you think? Do you think I'm qualified enough to talk about space stuff? No? Yes? Thank you. So let's start. So this is a Hubble Space Telescope image of a galaxy called NGC 5643. NGC stands for New General Catalog. You don't need to know. So this galaxy is about 60 million light years away from Earth. 60 million light years. This is one of the very close galaxies actually from the Earth. Does anyone know the diameter of our Milky Way, our own Milky Way? Anyone know the diameter? It is about 100,000 light years. 100,000 light years, okay? So our galaxy contains about 200 billion stars. Our sun is one of these stars. Okay. Now, based on this information, how many planets would be habitable in our galaxy? Planets is like our Earth, Mars, those are planets, or sun, that's the stars, okay? So based on this information, how many planets would be habitable in our galaxy? In other words, how many Earth-like planets may support life in our galaxy? Researchers estimate that our galaxy has roughly 300 million potentially habitable worlds. 300 million. Can you believe it? So if you believe that chemical evolution is a scientifically proven fact, in other words, non-living matters can turn into living matters if a very long time is given, you can conclude that extraterrestrial life will exist somewhere. That's why NASA is sending space probes and robots to search for extraterrestrial life. I worked in NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab before, basically sending these space probes to Mars and other planets in the solar system. And mainstream scientists believe that evolution is a fact, and therefore living matters must exist somewhere. So see this NASA's webpage on the Mars exploration here. They say that they search for ancient life, okay, and gather rocks and soils to find it. Based on this article, one blogger puts it this way: NASA's Mars rover is about to land in the perfect place to hunt for what? Alien fossils. Okay, so that's a philosophy now. Now let's assume that evolution is true. Then there may be highly evolved aliens out there. I know many of you still believe it. Here's my question. Is an alien invasion of Earth possible? This is a multiple choice question, so you can use your hand, okay? So please show me your answer. Is an alien invasion of Earth possible? You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have choice. So show me. Oh, you can use your hand like this. I can't see it. One, two. Okay, I can barely. Okay, front row I can see clearly. Two. It's impossible, huh? Okay. It's impossible? Do you think it's impossible? What's the matter with you guys? Okay, so the answer is number two. It is impossible. And let me explain why. To explain why, let me first show you the schematic illustration of the Alpha Centauri system. Have you heard of it? Alpha Centauri? So Alpha Centauri system is a multiple star system in the southern constellation of Centaurus, consisting of 3 stars. Among these 3 stars, Proxima Centauri is the closest star to the sun, which is about 4.24 light years away. Okay. Now, the twin spacecraft Voyager 1 and 2 were launched in 1977. Both probes have reached the boundary of interstellar space. Each Voyager used the enormous gravity field of Jupiter, reaching speed of roughly 38,000 miles per hour. It is roughly about 50 times the speed of sound. It goes very fast, right? 50 times the speed of sound. Here's my question. How long will it take for the Voyager to reach the Alpha Centauri system if it maintains the current speed? So I give this, okay, so another multiple choice question, so you can show me your answer. Okay, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 2, 3, 4, 1. Oh, 500 a year. All right, thank you. So the answer is number 4, 70,000 years. Okay, 70,000 years. So we know that we can never visit there using the current technologies. Now, let's assume that the technology advances enough, well beyond the current technology. If we have more advanced technology, can we travel now to the Alpha Centauri system? Okay, assume that you have all the technology. Please show me your answer. It's the same. Now it is 4, I don't know. 3, that is, it may be possible. Okay, I see more 3s here. The answer is number 2. Again, it is still impossible. So one can argue that several astronauts can give birth to babies, taking several generations to reach them in hundreds to thousands of years of journey, but it is not really practical, if not impossible. So let's assume that somehow we have a technology, therefore, to speed up the spacecraft to 10% of the light speed. Although in reality it's impossible, which I'll explain why, okay? I picked this 10% of the light speed to have the spacecraft reach the Alpha Centauri system within 50 years. In other words, before the astronauts naturally die, okay? So 10%. So another question here, can we travel to the Alpha Centauri system if we can travel at 10% of speed of light? What is your answer now? 10% speed of light. It takes less than 50 years to get there. So mathematically, it works. Okay, you have 2. That's still impossible. 3, 2, more 2. Huh, okay. What is going on here? Yeah, it is still 2. It is still not possible. And I'm going to explain why, okay? It's impossible to travel to the Alpha Centauri system or any other stars, even if you have the spacecraft traveling at 10% of the light speed. I'll explain, okay? The acceleration astronauts experience when leaving Earth is about 3g, okay? And that's only for a few minutes. Roller coasters can subject riders to g-forces ranging from 3 to 5Gs during intense steep drops or tight loops, but the intense g-forces typically last only for a few seconds, okay? Now imagine that you are subject to such g-forces for several hours, days, or even weeks. What will happen? Okay, you take this roller coaster and then you ride the roller coaster for weeks without resting. What happened? it'll lead to serious injury or death. But let's assume that astronauts are trained to survive under a long exposure of 3G acceleration. I'm not sure even if it is even possible, but I'll take an extreme scenario here to make my case, okay? So you can calculate the case of the spacecraft reaching point 1C under a constant 3G acceleration. Here, C represents a light speed, okay? If you accelerate the spacecraft while maintaining 3G, how long will it take to reach point 1C? That calculation is fairly simple. It takes about 2 weeks with a constant acceleration with 3G. So remember that it takes 2 weeks for the spacecraft to reach point 1C. Okay, 2 weeks. It's a little bit of exaggeration here for 2 weeks, acceleration, 2 weeks, the deceleration actually. In order to go to the Alpha Centauri, this middle part is 50 years, right? You have to stretch this a lot. When the spacecraft travels at point 1C, several fundamental issues must be overcome. Look at this photo image, which shows a space shuttle's window pit. Do you know what caused this window to be nearly shattered? It was due to the collision with a paint chip detached from a satellite, a paint chip. Why? Because of the huge velocity difference between the shuttle and the satellite then. Now imagine that the spacecraft traveling at point 1C hit any particle. For your information here, I quickly calculated the energy of a sesame seed colliding with the spacecraft. A single sesame seed weighs like 0.0046 grams. We can use the kinetic energy equation, 1/2 mv². Very simple, because if you're going to middle school, you learn this, right? So you have this, use the kinetic energy equation to calculate the energy imposed by this sesame seed traveling at point 1C. It's about 4 times 10 to the 14 joule over an order of magnitude more powerful than the Hiroshima atomic bomb. Sesame seed in that speed, more powerful than the atomic bomb. So the basic idea here is that the spacecraft traveling at point 1C should not collide with any particles. The problem is that various particles are widespread throughout space and they can pose a threat to a spacecraft. Then the ultimate question here is, can a spacecraft traveling at point 1C avoid contact with any particles during the journey to the Alpha Centauri system? Let's find out, okay? So let's consider the braking distance. Have you heard of it? Braking distance is the distance of a vehicle travels from where the brakes are applied to where the vehicle stops. When the spacecraft travels at point 1C to avoid contact with any particles, one can try to stop it before it hits the particle, right? So here we can simply calculate the braking distance. We ensure that the astronauts experience the maximum G-force of 3G, okay, during this operation. The calculation shows that the spacecraft has traveled over 100 AU before it can fully stop. So you saw the sesame seed over there, okay? Wow, we gotta stop, we gotta stop. You hit the brake and you traveled already 100 AU until it fully stops. AU stands for astronomical unit, the average distance between Earth and Sun. Okay, it's 100 AU. And it has taken already about 2 weeks to do that. You moved 100 AU and it took you 2 weeks, okay? So this means that you cannot really avoid collision with particles by trying to decelerate the spacecraft at that speed, okay? While you try to stop it, you have hit the particles already, you're dead. Okay, what if we can just turn the spacecraft a little bit, right? To avoid any particle. So we can again calculate the minimum turning radius for the whole spacecraft under 3G. It is found that the minimum turning radius is around 200 AU this time. Again, this means that you cannot really avoid particles by turning the spacecraft. What do these all mean? A spacecraft traveling at point 1C cannot avoid hitting space particles. Some argue that, okay, you make the spacecraft very strong and rigid. Okay, it is not, so that it never destroys, never get destroyed here. So even if you do that, the people inside the spacecraft will be fried due to the enormous energy at the contact. So it doesn't work in that scenario either. This means that your humans' interstellar travel is not possible. That means you have aliens that you want to invade Earth, they cannot travel to Earth. Now let's consider another extreme scenario here to make my case. We assume no particles are on a collision course with the spacecraft there. This is, of course, entirely unlikely because the space is filled with countless particles and the spacecraft moves a long distance very quickly. We can calculate the kinetic energy required to accelerate the spacecraft to a certain speed. The Apollo lunar lander weighs 1.5 tons. And let's calculate the kinetic energy required to accelerate even a smaller one, a 10-ton spacecraft. Okay, so basically, I'm taking this extreme case, you make it small and small because smaller is easier. Okay, so 10-ton spacecraft here to the escape velocity from Earth. The escape velocity is the velocity needed for a body to escape from a gravitational center without further propulsion. So you have to reach that velocity to escape the Earth's gravity there. The escape velocity from the Earth is approximately 11 kilometers per second. And the energy required to accelerate 10-ton spacecraft to 11 kilometers per second is about 6 times 10 to the 12th joule. So please remember this number, 6 times 10 to the 12th. Now, let's compare this number. Okay, this number is basically the energy required to launch your rocket and then let it escape the Earth. That's it, okay? So that's energy required to do that. Now let's compare this number to the energy required to accelerate the spacecraft to point 1C, our ultimate goal here. It's about 4.5 times 10 to the 18th joule, nearly 1 million times more energy, okay? Needed to launch the Apollo spacecraft there. So what does this mean? This means that in order to accelerate a 10-ton spacecraft to point 1C, we need to have around 1 million Saturn V Apollo rockets. 1 million. Or maybe hundreds of thousands of Starship boosters if you are looking for more powerful ones. Still hundreds of thousands. Is this ever possible? No, we know that it's not possible. It's physically impossible to have millions of such rockets in one place. Because of all these reasons, interstellar human travel or interstellar alien travel is physically impossible. One might argue about using warp engines as seen in Star Trek, or even envision using wormholes. But these concepts are from sci-fi fiction and science fiction and are not achievable in reality. Okay. Well, actually, if you want to incorporate all these sci-fi ideas, you can say anything. You can achieve anything. So that doesn't mean much. Okay. So based on what we have learned so far, okay, please answer this question: are UFOs from other star system? Show me your answer. Someone show 5. There's no 5. You still show 5. 2, 2, 3. Okay, a lot of 2s. Okay, thank you. Yeah, of course, yeah. Unless you're sleeping, you know that it is not possible. So it's impossible even if aliens exist. Even if aliens exist, okay? So UFOs are literally unidentified flying object, right? Nothing more. Okay, so we know that aliens cannot travel to Earth even if they exist. While aliens may not be able to reach Earth, the possibility of their existence remains, especially considering the concept of theistic evolution. So I'm not sure how many of you really believe that theistic evolution. Theistic evolution combines aspects of faith with the belief in biblical, biological evolution. So basically, you want to combine this faith and evolution, okay? So it is a belief that God uses the process of evolution to create and develop life on Earth. How many of you have this kind of viewpoint? How many of you? Raise your hand. No? Okay. So it also suggests this theistic evolution also suggests that God created living things through evolutionary processes, potentially on other planets as well. Most people who believe in the theistic evolution within the church do not typically consider the possibility of aliens. However, it is because they do not think through. If they really explore the ideas, then they might conclude that the existence of aliens is possible. Okay. So theistic evolution attempts to reconcile faith and evolution, raising several theological issues. It poses questions about the historical existence of Adam. If humans evolved from a common ancestor, how do we reconcile this with the biblical account of the first human? We as Christians believe that sin entered the world through Adam's disobedience. If they were not historical figures, what would happen? Well, there are several related issues we could discuss here. Basically, we can consolidate them into two, okay? So if the macroevolution is true, there are two scenarios. What is macroevolution? Here, an example of macroevolution includes the evolution of totally different kinds to another kinds, such as from reptilian ancestors to mammals, okay? So those are macroevolutions. Did I raise? Maybe I just push the wrong button. Okay, so there are two possibilities, okay? If if you believe the macroevolution is true, then there are two possibilities how you interpret your Bible. One, you believe that Adam is not a historical figure. Then the Garden of Eden story becomes a myth, eliminating the basis for original sin and the need for salvation. You can't really accept this idea. Two, you believe that we evolved from primitive primates, and God named a specific individual or group of those animals as Adam. Then Adam was not the first person. Then what is the source of sin? When did sin enter the world? Evolution involves millions of years of death and extinction before humans appear. What about so many deaths before sin? How do you answer all these things without altering the biblical context there? So BioLogos is an organization that promotes the harmony between evolution and the Christian faith. People participating in that organization believe evolution is a proven fact. Here I'll show you one of the examples of how those theologians who believe in a theistic evolution interpret the Bible. Joseph Bankard is a professor of philosophy at Northwest Nazarene University. He wrote this article entitled Substitutionary Atonement and Evolution. This is a long article, so I summarize a few key points here. He argues that while substitutionary atonement sees original sin as a major reason for Christ's death, macroevolution calls the fall and the doctrine of original sin into question. And evolution poses a significant challenge to the substitutionary atonement. He argues that since macroevolution is correct, Adam was not a historical figure, because consequently the basis for original sin would be eliminated and the savior would no longer be necessary. And he asks the reason for the incarnation of Jesus. Can you believe it? He further goes by introducing an alternative view of the cross. He does not believe that Jesus became a man just to die. He believes that Jesus took on flesh only to show us how to live and how to be a complete human. He concludes that Christ's death was not part of God's holy plan. In other words, God can forgive in various ways and does not require blood, implies that God did not die on the cross. What do you think? I would say this is a heresy. However, at the same time, it is a logical consequence if you believe in evolution. At least he is honest. At least he is logical. Here, what I wanted to show you is that the Bible and the evolution are not compatible if you read the Bible without distorting or reinterpreting its text. Now, then is evolution a scientifically proven fact, really? Charles Darwin observed finches and tortoises during his visit to the Galapagos Islands and proposing that species could change over time through natural selection. Like, can you see it? These birds, these finches, they are still finches. They're different, but they're still finches. The accumulation of small changes does not lead to changing finches into different kinds. They're still finches. We call it microevolution or variation since they are changing within their kinds. These are not a proof of evolution. Evolutionists believe that accumulating these small changes over a long period of time will lead to a macroevolution, but there's no real proof of that claim. Okay. Same for tortoises. They're still tortoises. No change, no change. Additionally, if you examine the fossil records, you'll always find a noticeable absence of clear transitional fossils. While some fossils are labeled as transitional, they are scattered among others and often arranged according to an evolutionary timeline that paleontologists subscribe to. The reality is that most fossils, especially so-called transitional fossils, are dispersed without a definitive observable sequence. All right. So these are true findings. These are imagination and belief. These the one in the left is something that you find in your textbook usually. Okay. Professor Jim Tour is a professor at Rice University. He's a prominent scholar with expertise in organic chemistry. He's a Messianic Jew. He's a top scientist who best understands the chemical evolutionary process. He's close to retirement, so he puts more time and energy into counter-arguing that chemical evolution from non-living matters to living matters is scientifically and technically impossible. Then see what happens to him is his stance against this chemical evolution of life has placed him under significant persecution within the scientific community and also, through YouTube and others, and impacting his professional and personal life. Despite these challenges, he remains a highly respected figure for his contributions to organic chemistry. I highly encourage you to follow his posting and videos. And he basically, so if you are, say, college students and you're majoring chemistry, I highly encourage you to watch his series of videos and basically showing why chemical evolution from non-living to living matters is not possible. He shows this scientifically. Okay. Now let's delve into the compatibility with aliens and the Bible. If you still believe the evolution may be a scientific fact, as I mentioned at the beginning of this lecture, you might conclude that numerous species of aliens could exist on planets outside our solar system or in other galaxies. Most people who believe in the theistic evolution may not think about the aliens, but these are inevitable consequences if you really follow through. Then inevitable questions arise. The concept of theistic evolution suggests that God works through the process of evolution to bring about the diversity of life on Earth. Under this viewpoint, discussing alien life and the potential for different saviors and different alien systems becomes an obvious theological question. Then the question arises of whether there could be different saviors tailored to each alien species. Can you believe that there are theologians who promote this type of ideas? There are a bunch of. But what does the Bible say about this? Let's read a couple of verses here. Can one of you unmute and read? Please read Romans first, Romans 5:12 first.
Is that one here? It's on the screen.
Let's all read together. Romans 5:12.
Therefore, just as through one man sin entered into the world, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men, because all sinned.
Now, 1 Corinthians 15:12.
For since by a man came death, by a man also came the resurrection of the dead.
Thank you. So what does the scripture say? Sin entered the world through one man, highlighting that Adam's sin had repercussions for all of humanity, leading to universal experience of sin and death. It's very clear. Now, let's read one more. Hebrews 10:12, please.
He, having offered one sacrifice for sins for all time, sat down at the right hand of God.
Thank you. So this verse refers to Jesus Christ, who made a single all-sufficient sacrifice for the sins of humanity. I believe this means all-sufficient sacrifice in time and space, past, now, and future, and all of the galaxies. After completing his act, he's at the right hand of the God, symbolizing his exalted status. Jesus is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, emphasizing his sovereign rule over all creation. Furthermore, he is described as having sat down, symbolizing the completion of his redemptive work. He can't go to another planet to save aliens a million times on a million different planets like this. All right. This image is from the Sloan's Digital Sky Survey of galaxies using redshifts, which are not explained. Each dot represents a galaxy, each dot. Now, some argue or question if God created humanity, especially on Earth, what might be the purpose of, or significance behind the creation of so many galaxies? How does this relate to our existence and understanding of God's intentions? I think we can find some answers in the Bible. Let's read Genesis 1:14 together again, please. And God said,
"Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens, and by the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, for days and years."
Okay, thank you. Yes, let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years. That's the purpose of the script of these creation. The scriptures talk about here. These heavenly bodies are created for us. These stars, not to mention other galaxies, are not there for us to explore physically. We can only explore those planets within the solar system. Even that is mostly through these robotic probes. Human cannot go there. Of course, Elon Musk is planning, NASA is planning to send human to Mars, but that's, imagine it takes 11 months to go from Earth to Mars. It takes 11 years. And then every 3 years, the Mars and Earth approach closer, okay? And if you miss this opportunity, basically they move away. So that means it takes 11 months to go there. And those astronauts have to live there for 2 years. And after that, you want to come back, then you need another booster. Where do you find those boosters? So basically, it's not possible. It's not, it may be possible if your mission is to go and die there. It may be possible, one-way ticket. But round ticket, I don't think it is ever possible. But even if we assume that it is possible, it's only up to Mars. That's it. So that means the stars, okay, are not there for us to explore physically. They are created so that we can gaze up on the stars while living on Earth. Okay, it's written there like this in the Bible, and it is scientifically proven. Kepler's planetary motion laws is describe planets' orbit around the sun. Likewise, many aspects of celestial mechanics in space can be described using mathematical equations. All of these can be described using mathematical equations. The Bible says God stretched out the heavens and created an orderly universe. And I have not had time to talk about the fine tuning of Earth today, but you'll be amazed if you see how finely tuned the Earth is to support life. Okay, one more. Let's read Isaiah 45:18. Isaiah 45:18.
For this is what the Lord says, He who created the heavens, He is God. He who fashioned and made the earth, He founded it. He did not create it to be empty, but formed it to be inhabited. He says, I am the Lord, and there is no other.
Yes, he did not create it to be empty, but formed it to be inhabited. We are not just one of the habitable planets in the universe. No, we are specially created on Earth. Finally, God created the galaxies and stars to display his glory. Okay, Psalm 19:1, he created for the display of his glory. Okay, so Christianity can often seem more extreme over time, not because the Bible itself changes, but because society gradually moves further away from biblical views. So we have to go back to the Bible. Okay. Okay, with that, thank you very much.